in all, it's Ben Gates here, and obviously kicked off last time giving a bit of an update on the youth setup, bit of a new youth team aspect to Forge from Iron. So yeah, last one was just catching up with the league to date in both the under-21s and under-18s, which I'm going to do going forward. There's been a few games since, but I don't really want to go into that today. What I want to do is just to give a bit of an update on our players that are out on loan, our young players that are out on loan. So if you watched my last podcast, you'll know that the under-21s aren't doing very well in the league. They're rooted to bottom of the league. Actually, I think I'm only on 1 point the last time I done the show. I think they might have nicked another draw since then, maybe, but yeah, basically they're not doing very well at all. A large part of the reason why is pretty much half the team either left the club or went out on loan. So yeah, I think a lot of us will agree that it's a real good way of players improving, getting experience in the lower leagues to then come in and then try and cement their place in the first team squad. Obviously, if they haven't got first team experience, it's quite difficult to do. I mean, you can do it, but it's usually the exceptional players that make the breakthrough, like Declan Rice, Wayne Rooney, players going back. But you only have to look at the current England captain, Harry Kane, who had numerous loan spells at the lower leagues and improved into the brilliant player that he is today. So yeah, really want to focus on that. We've got a good few players out on loan at different levels, and one that's in another country altogether. So I'm going to start with probably the worst, because unfortunately not everyone is going to excel. You've got players in the youth setup, they might look all fairly similar at that age group level, but actually once they start playing against men, you understand who's going to make it at a real top level, say Premier League or Championship, and players that are just going to fizzle out and maybe their level is League 1 or 2. So I'll start with probably the player, the ones that aren't doing so well, and then I'll finish on one in particular who is doing very, very well. So I'll start with, we've got two young goalkeepers out on loan. The first one that I'll go into is Joseph Anang, who's 22-year-old goalkeeper. He's actually out on loan at Derby County, and the reason I've started with him in terms of probably not doing so well, I think he's been injured, so it's not like he's had a stinker. I think he was brought in to be their number one. From what I can gather on Twitter from their fans are saying that they need a new number one goalie, because they don't think the lad who's doing it in there at the minute is up to it. And I think the guys are saying, well, that's why Nang was brought in, to be their number one, but unfortunately he's been injured. So yeah, it's his third loan spell. He'd done a stint out on loan at Stevenage the season before last. Then he was at St Patrick's Athletic in Ireland, bit of a strange one, but that's where he was. And then he's now on loan at Derby. So hopefully Joseph Anang can get fit, 22, very young for a goalie, and get some good experience on loan at Derby County. I'll then probably go on to the next goalie that we've got out on loan that might be a little bit more familiar as a name than Joseph Anang, is Nathan Trott. So Nathan Trott has been at the club a very long time. He's actually been capped at England under 20 level 6 times. So, at his age group, rated him. He's actually from Bermuda. He actually come, I believe, via a recommendation from Clyde Best. He was picked up at a Bermudan club and had a trial with West Ham a good few years ago now and got in. Now, he's actually gone out on loan, and I don't know if I can pronounce this right, a Velkje Bold Club. So this is a Danish club who I think historically were a very successful Danish club. But from what I can gather, I think they're actually in the second tier of Danish football now. I think they got relegated last year, and they look to be a bit of a yo-yo club between the top league and the second league in Denmark. Now, I must admit, I find this loan quite odd. Like Nathan Trot in the season 2019-2020, he went on loan to AFC Wimbledon. So they would have been in League Two at the time, you know. So he had his first ever loan spell, senior football, League Two in England. He then went out on loan last season to Nancy in League Two in France, you know. So definitely a step up from AFC Wimbledon, I would think. And played a good few games there. And then you would hope he would have got a loan in the Championship. Do you know what I mean? To keep that route of progression on his loan spells on the up. It doesn't look that way to me. It seems a very odd loan, and it's one of them out of sight, out of mind, in my opinion. I think if he was in the Championship, really doing the business, like say you've got Fabianski who's getting old, obviously Areola, you would think in the medium term will be our number one goalie once Fab retires. And then it would be great if Nathan Trott could come in to be the understudy and take over from him if he's got the ability, which, if I'm honest, I don't know if he has. But the fact that he's gone out on loan to a second-tier Danish side doesn't look a good loan to me, so doesn't look good for him, in my opinion. We're then going to move on to Armstrong Okaflex. So Armstrong Okaflex, for those that don't know, is a 20-year-old attacker. He can generally play anywhere across those front three positions, like he's striker, left wing, right wing. We bought him off of Celtic, who'd nicked him off of Arsenal. So I think he's always been quite a highly rated guy. And I think at under 21 level last season, you could tell he was well above that. You know, he was scoring a lot of goals, hat-tricks, 2 goals, assists. Him and Perkins were really pulling up trees, really. So he's 20 years old. He's gone out on loan at Swansea. So in terms of level that he's playing at, along with Manny Longelo, who's gone to Birmingham, Armstrong Okaflex is, he's playing at the highest level in the Championship. Unfortunately, it doesn't look to be going too well for him so far, from what I can see. I think he's not started many games. He's been on the bench quite a lot. He gave away a penalty against West Brom, pushed someone over in the box, I think, at a corner, and then he come on against Reading at half time, and then was pulled off with 10 minutes to go. So it's a bit of a damning indictment, isn't it? When you see a player that's been brought on who has been subbed off, there's a concern there that maybe he's just not up to it at that level at this moment in his career. I think he's, it's his first loan spell out at real senior level football. So, these young players, just because they're at West Ham and go on loan at lower level, they can't expect to just turn up and walk into the team. They've got to earn the right, and I think that's where a lot of our players are finding it maybe a bit difficult, that they're not well established in their teams at the moment. But there's still time on his side. We'll then go to, let's say, Dan Chester's. So Dan Chester's, attacking midfield player / winger, I would say. 20 years old. He's out on loan at Colchester in League Two. So obviously the bottom rung in terms of the professional league in England. First loan spell. And again, a bit similar to what I said with Okaflex. Found himself on the bench quite a lot for the start of this whole season, actually. But he's been coming on, getting half hour here, 20 minutes there. And he actually, so in total he's played 8 games. But the real positive thing is he's got 2 assists, and in his last game he played pretty much the whole game, 88 minutes, got an assist. So it looks like he's getting to grips with senior football, and he's making his mark in terms of cementing his place in the Colchester team. So that's all you can ask for, get the lads out on loan, cement their place, goals and assists or clean sheets if they're a defender, really do the business, and then hope that your next loan spell, whether it's after Christmas or next season, is a step up, and just keep improving and keep improving. Who should I go on to next? We're going to go on to Thierry Nethers. So Thierry Nethers, 20-year-old striker / winger. He's on loan at Newport County and started the season really well. From what I can gather on Twitter, a lot of their fans were saying he was their bright spark. Nicked a goal pretty early on. I think he got a little niggly injury, and then their manager's been sacked. You know what I mean? So there's been a bit of disruption in terms of Newport County's start to the season. They can't be doing too well if they've sacked the manager. But a little bright spark has been Thierry Nethers. Their fans have been really pleased, taking people on, exciting the crowd. Looks quite an exciting talent. So we'll keep an eye on that one. We're then going to move on to who I would say so far from the youngsters has probably been the second best, and that's Mipo Odebeko. So a lot of you guys might know that name. He actually has played for the first team, come on against Man United in the Cup a couple of seasons ago. He's only 20, so at that time he was 18. He looked a fish out of water. He looked really out of his depth. But like I say, he's a young lad. I'm not going to say he's never going to make it at Prem level. I think it's unlikely from what I've seen. But he's on loan at Port Vale. He's a striker. We got him from Man United in the youth team set up, and that was quite a big coup at the time because he was very highly rated. He's Irish. So this is his third loan spell. Last season, he went out on loan at Huddersfield in the Championship and didn't really do it. I think it was maybe a culture shock at the intensity and the level that the Championship was. He didn't get much of a look in, to be honest. He then come back to West Ham and then went out on loan to Doncaster, I think, in League One. And he got 16 games, 2 goals. So not a particularly great return. I think a lot of those games were substitute. But I do recall that it was like literally the 2 goals that he scored were the last 2 games of the season. So it felt like he's only 19, League One, rough and tumble, striker. He just started to get to grips towards the end of the season of that senior football and nicked a couple of goals. He's then gone out on loan at Port Vale this season, I think still in League One. And he's played 10 times, got 3 goals. Couple of goals in the league, 1 in the Football League trophy. So it seems this lad is, I wouldn't say finding his level, maybe his level is higher than that League One in the future, but it seems like he's finding his feet in senior football this season. He's just turned 20, still a young man of the match in the last game. So I'm hopeful that this lad is going to keep improving and get a lot of goals at League One level, come back end of the season, and who knows what his options might be. So I'm then going to round off with the last player on loan who from what I read, is without doubt been the shining light from our youth team out on loan, which is Manny Longelo, who is a left back / left winger. He's 21 years old. Played a couple of games for the first team. I think we'll probably all remember one of the Europa League games where we'd already qualified last season. We set up with a back 4 of fully youth team players. Ashby on the right, Baptiste on the left, Longelo on the left. And I would say out of those 4, Longelo was the one I wouldn't say most people hadn't heard of, but maybe not as highly rated. The others have been capped numerous times at youth level for their countries. Longelo hasn't really. But Longelo was probably the best player on the pitch out of those four, and probably the best player in our team. Very confident, good on the ball, quick, bombing down that left wing, a lot of energy, and maybe a few of us was hopeful we might get a look in, but obviously he hasn't in terms of the first team. Cresswell, in my opinion, first choice left back. We've brought in Emerson Palmieri, who plays on that left side as well, who's getting most of the games in the cup. But actually, I think the good thing is Palmieri doesn't look like a long-term successor for Cresswell, and I'm hopeful Longelo can be that. He's out on loan at Birmingham, so never been out on loan, and he's gone straight into the Championship. I think he had a couple of niggly injuries to start with, but I think he started sort of the last 4, 5, 6 games for Birmingham, and he is getting some real rave reviews. Their fans on Twitter are saying, look, we want to keep him. I think in his first or second game, he got in the Championship Team of the Week. He looks, the fans are saying he looks really, really good at that level. Quick feet, energy. What is really, really good is that I read an article from Mark Robson, who's obviously the reserve team manager at West Ham. He said, look, this loan is really what we were expecting from Manny, is tear it up at Birmingham and be coming back end of the season and knocking on David Moyes' door saying, I need to be in this first team squad. And from what he's doing so far, that looks like what he's doing. I think he's more of an attacking fullback, but there's some good coaches at Birmingham in terms of defensive coaches. Mark Robson saying Keith Downing, who he'd worked with at England, real brilliant defensive coach. So you'd like to think that only bodes well for Manny Longelo's development into a real good, solid left back this season, to come back and really put pressure on Cresswell and Palmieri and get another young lad establishing themselves in the first team. So thanks for your time, guys. I'll keep you updated over the coming weeks of the progress of these chaps, and hopefully there's more positive news to come. So thank you very much, and come on, you Irons.